There is a moment that repeats itself in the lives of countless men, and it happens so quietly that most never recognize it as the turning point it truly is. A woman who seemed indifferent, even cold, suddenly shifts. Her texts come faster, her tone softens, she asks about your week. She mentions things you said weeks ago that you assumed she'd forgotten, and if you've been on the receiving end of this shift, you know precisely how intoxicating it feels. It feels like validation, like proof, like the universe finally correcting an injustice. But here's what most men never see. The shift didn't happen because she suddenly recognized your value. It happened because you stopped offering it so freely. I work with men who have lived this pattern from both sides. Men who spent months pouring attention into a woman who barely replied, only to watch her pursue them the moment they turned their focus elsewhere. And I work with men who are living the other side right now. Men who can feel themselves shrinking in real time, watching a woman's interest cool as they increase their investment, and they cannot understand why. They're doing everything they were told would work. They're consistent, available, vulnerable, honest about their feelings, and with each act of sincerity, they feel her pull further away. And they do not know that they are participating in one of the oldest and most predictable mechanisms of human desire, the economics of scarcity. Schopenhauer understood this with a brutality that still makes modern readers uncomfortable. He saw romantic love not as some transcendent force, but as the will's cleverest trick biology wearing the mask of destiny, engineering outcomes it never bothers to explain. He watched men destroy themselves chasing women who offered nothing but the possibility of interest, and he understood that what they were really chasing was not the woman herself, but the relief from a want that would only intensify the closer they got to satisfying it. The man who makes himself abundant in a woman's life hands her the one thing that kills desire faster than cruelty ever could: certainty, predictability, the knowledge that no matter what she does, no matter how little effort she offers in return, he will still be there, still hoping, still available. You have lived some version of this. You met her, and something in her pulled something in you, and you made a decision, often without realizing you'd made it at all, that she was worth organizing your life around. You started texting first, suggesting plans, and following up when she didn't, adjusting your schedule to match hers, and canceling things to make space for the possibility of seeing her. And in those early days it might have even worked. She might have responded warmly, might have seemed interested. But then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, the dynamic began to shift. Her replies took longer, her enthusiasm dimmed. The energy you were putting in started to feel like it was disappearing into a void, and the more you sensed her pulling away, the more you tried to close the distance. You became more available, more reassuring, more willing to explain yourself, to prove your intentions, to demonstrate that you were different from other men. And with every reassurance, with every message sent to check in, you felt her respect for you quietly evaporate. This is not a moral failure. This is not evidence that you're weak or broken or doing masculinity wrong. This is what happens when a man does not understand that desire operates on a different economy than fairness, that attention is a currency that deflates the moment you flood the market with it. Schopenhauer would tell you that what you're experiencing is the will, the blind, driving force beneath all life, manipulating your emotions to serve reproduction's agenda. And that agenda has no interest in your happiness. It has no interest in justice or reciprocity or whether you've been a good man. It is only interested in one thing: generating the conditions under which genetic transmission feels urgent and necessary. And urgency requires uncertainty. Necessity requires scarcity. The pattern works like this. At first, you are an unknown variable. She doesn't know if you'll stay interested, doesn't know how much effort you'll require, doesn't know if other women want you, or if you have options, or if you lose interest the moment she lets her guard down. And this uncertainty, this not knowing, creates a low-grade psychological tension that her mind interprets as attraction. It's not that she's sitting there strategizing or playing games. It's that her nervous system is doing precisely what it was designed to do: pay attention to what might disappear. But then you do something that feels generous and good. You make yourself clear. You show up consistently. You remove all ambiguity about your interest, and in doing so, you remove the very tension that was generating her attraction. I once spoke to a man who spent 4 months pursuing a woman who gave him nothing but breadcrumbs. She'd reply to 1 message out of every 5. She'd agree to plans and cancel an hour before. She'd compliment him in person and then go silent for weeks. He stayed because he convinced himself that she was just scared, just busy, just recovering from past hurt. He told himself that if he could prove he was patient enough, safe enough, different enough, she would eventually see him clearly. And then one day, for reasons he couldn't articulate, he stopped. He didn't make an announcement. He didn't send a final message or ask for closure. He turned his attention back to his own life. He rejoined his gym routine, started a side project he'd been putting off, and stopped checking his phone every 20 minutes. And within 2 weeks, she was texting him. Not breadcrumbs, full paragraphs, questions about what he'd been doing, suggestions for plans. And when they finally met up again, he could feel it. Her entire energy had shifted. She was warmer, more present, more invested. And he asked me, what happened? What did I do differently? And the answer is, nothing. He didn't do anything differently to her. He stopped doing everything. He became scarce, and scarcity rewrote the terms of engagement without a single word of conflict. Here's what Schopenhauer saw that most men never do. The will does not care about individuals. It cares about patterns. And one of its most reliable patterns is this: we assign value to what is rare, what is difficult to obtain, what might be lost. This is not cruelty. This is not manipulation. This is the architecture of desire itself. A woman does not sit down and consciously decide to lose interest in a man who becomes too available. Her attraction fades like a flame when the oxygen in the room runs out. She doesn't want to feel this way. She might even hate herself for it. But she cannot override it through willpower or moral reasoning, because it is happening beneath the level of conscious thought. It is happening in the same place that governs hunger, fear, and every other survival-linked impulse. And this is where most men make their most devastating mistake. They see her interest fading and interpret it as a problem to be solved through more effort, more communication, more emotional labor. They double down on availability, on niceness, on proving they care, and they do not realize they are accelerating the very process they're trying to stop, because each act of increased investment signals the same thing. I have nothing better to do than wait for you. I have no other options. I need you more than you need me. And these signals, no matter how kindly delivered, no matter how genuine the feeling behind them, kill attraction with the efficiency of poison. Let me be very clear about what's happening at the psychological level, because this is where most men lose the thread. When you make yourself abundant in her life, when you're always available, always responsive, always willing to drop everything to accommodate her schedule, you are not demonstrating love or commitment. You are showing that you have been captured, that her attention is the organizing principle of your existence. And this is a repellent force in the early stages of attraction, because it reveals a man who lacks a life worth protecting. A man whose mission is so fragile, so poorly defined, that it can be abandoned the moment a woman shows even marginal interest. Schopenhauer would frame this as the will revealing its trap. The biological imperative that drives men toward women is not designed to make you happy. It's designed to make you useful for reproduction. And reproduction doesn't care if you respect yourself in the morning. It doesn't care if the relationship is balanced or sustainable. It only cares that you feel a want so powerful that you'll organize your entire existence around satisfying it. And a woman, whether she realizes it or not, is testing for the presence of that trap every time she interacts with you. She's testing to see if you have something in your life that matters more than her approval. She's testing to see if you'll abandon your frame to accommodate hers. She's testing to see if your attention is scarce or if it's bottomless. And if it's bottomless, she knows some deep, inarticulate part of her knows that it's worthless. This is the invisible mechanism that destroys more relationships before they even begin than any argument or betrayal ever could. It happens in the texting phase. He replies instantly every time, and she starts taking hours, then days. It occurs in the planning phase, when he's always the one suggesting, always the one following up, always the one absorbing the uncertainty of whether she'll show up. It happens during the vulnerability phase, when he shares his fears and insecurities, hoping it will bring them closer together. Instead, he watches her eyes glaze over, watches her start to see him as a problem to manage rather than a man to respect. And through all of this, he's confused, because he's been told that this is what women want. Emotional availability, consistency. A man who isn't afraid to express his feelings, and all of that might be true in theory, in the abstract, in the kind of relationship that exists after years of built trust. But in the beginning, in the place where attraction is either born or suffocated, these behaviors read as something else entirely. They read as, I have no scarcity, I have no other options. I am waiting for you to permit me to feel valuable. The broader system is designed to hide this from you. Modern dating culture, with its apps, algorithms, and endless buffet of options, has created an environment where men are trained to compete through availability, where the man who replies fastest, who's most eager to meet up, who's most willing to accommodate her every preference, is supposed to win. But this is the opposite of how attraction works. Attraction is not a reward for good behavior. It's not a rational process where she weighs your qualities and makes a fair assessment. It's a feeling that emerges from uncertainty, from the sense that something valuable might slip away if she doesn't act, and the man who makes himself infinitely available removes all possibility of that feeling ever arising. And here's what makes this so psychologically devastating for men. The current culture gives you no framework for understanding this. You're told that pursuing women is predatory, that traditional courtship is outdated, that you should wait for clear signals of interest before making a move. And then you're also told that if she's not interested, it's because you're not trying hard enough, not proving yourself enough, not making her feel safe enough. These messages are not just contradictory. They're designed to keep you in a state of perpetual confusion, where every instinct you have is suspect, and every action you take can be reframed as a moral failing. You cannot win this game, because the rules change depending on who's interpreting them and whether your attention is currently wanted or currently suffocating. Schopenhauer saw through these centuries before dating apps existed. He understood that the will, that blind force driving all life, had no interest in your clarity or peace. It wanted to confuse you. It wanted you desperate. Because desperate men make decisions that serve reproduction, even when those decisions destroy them. And the woman across from you is not conspiring against you. She's just as trapped by this mechanism as you are. She doesn't want to lose attraction to the kind man who makes himself available. She doesn't want to feel drawn to the man who barely texts back, who keeps her guessing, who seems like he could walk away at any moment. But she can't help it because her attraction is not under her conscious control any more than yours is. This is where most men break. They recognize the pattern they see, that their availability is killing her interest, but they can't bring themselves to pull back, because pulling back feels like giving up. It feels like playing games. It feels manipulative, cold, and like the opposite of an authentic connection. And so they stay in the pattern, texting first, explaining themselves, trying to logic their way into her respect. And all the while her interest continues to fade, not because she's cruel, not because she doesn't value good men, but because her nervous system has received a clear signal. This man is not scarce. This man will tolerate anything. This man has no other options. If you want to understand how deep this goes, look at what happens in the rare cases where the dynamic flips. A man finally walks away. He stops texting, stops initiating, stops making himself emotionally available to someone who was barely offering anything in return. And within days, sometimes hours, she reaches out, not with breadcrumbs, with effort, with questions, with a sudden, urgent need to know what changed, what she did wrong, and why he's pulling away. And if he's not careful, if he doesn't understand what's happening, he'll interpret this as proof that she finally sees him, that his patience paid off, that love has won, and he'll rush back in, eager to resume the connection. And the moment he does, the moment he makes himself abundant, again her interest will begin to fade all over again, because the only thing that spiked her attraction was the threat of loss, not his presence, his absence. This is not a strategy. This is not a technique to manipulate women into wanting you. This is a description of how the mechanism actually works, beneath all the stories we tell ourselves about love connections and finding the right person. You can rage against this. You can call it shallow or broken or evidence that modern women are incapable of appreciating good men. But raging against it doesn't change it. And the cost of refusing to see it is that you'll spend years of your life pouring energy into dynamics that were dead the moment you made yourself too available, wondering why you keep attracting the same kind of woman, the same kind of outcome, the same quiet erosion of your self-respect. Here's what a man who understands this looks like in practice. He does not play games. He does not pretend to be busy when he's not, or manufacture false scarcity to manipulate her emotions. But he also does not abandon his life the moment a woman shows interest. He keeps his mission central. He protects his time. He notices when he's doing all the initiating, or the planning, or the emotional labor, and instead of increasing his effort to compensate, he stops. Not as punishment, not as a strategy, but as a boundary, as a refusal to participate in a dynamic where his attention is being taken for granted. He understands that a woman's attraction is not something he can argue her into or negotiate for. It either exists or it doesn't, and it exists in proportion to how much uncertainty she feels about his continued presence. So he allows her to feel that uncertainty. He allows her to wonder if he'll text back. He allows her to experience the possibility that he might lose interest, that he might have other options, that his attention is not a guarantee. And this is not cruelty. This is respect. Respect for the way attraction actually works, rather than the way he wishes it worked. When she reaches out, he responds when it's convenient for him, not immediately. When she suggests plans, he agrees if they fit his schedule, and he doesn't rearrange his life to accommodate hers. When she tests him, and she will test him, by pulling back, by going silent, by creating minor conflicts to see if he'll chase he does not react with panic or increased effort, he continues living his life, and he trusts that if she's genuinely interested, she'll close the distance herself. And if she doesn't, he's learned something valuable, that his attention was worth more than she was willing to invest to keep it. This requires a kind of internal strength that most men have not developed, because they've been raised in a culture that tells them their value comes from how much they sacrifice for others, how much they accommodate, how much they're willing to tolerate in the name of being a good man. But here's what that culture won't tell you. A good man who doesn't respect himself is not attractive. A good man who abandons his mission for the possibility of a woman's approval is not a prize. He's a project. And projects generate pity, not desire. Schopenhauer would tell you that the suffering you feel in this dynamic is not an accident. It's the will's way of ensuring you stay engaged, stay hopeful, and keep investing energy into a biological imperative that has no interest in your long-term well-being. And the only way to escape that suffering is to see it clearly, to stop pretending that your availability is a gift and recognize that in the economy of desire, it's a liability, to stop hoping that the right woman will be different, that she'll be the one who values your consistency and emotional openness from the start, and accept that even the best woman is still operating on the same fundamental firmware. She cannot override her attraction triggers through moral reasoning. She cannot choose to be drawn to a man who makes himself too available, any more than you can choose to be attracted to a woman who repulses you. This is not a call to become cold or distant or to treat women as adversaries. This is a call to protect your attention as the valuable resource it actually is, to recognize that when you give it freely, without reciprocation, without any cost to the other person, you are not being generous. You are being foolish. You are flooding the market with a currency that only holds value when it's scarce, and the woman you're trying to win over can feel the difference, even if she can't articulate it, between a man whose attention she had to earn and a man who gave it away before she'd done anything to deserve it. Let me show you what this looks like over the years, because the stakes here are not just about one woman or one failed relationship. If you continue down the path of making yourself abundant, if you continue to organize your life around the women who show you marginal interest, if you continue to increase your investment in proportion to their disinterest, you will become a man you don't recognize. 5 years from now, you'll be smaller, more bitter, more confused. You'll have a list of women who lost interest in you, and you won't understand why, because you did everything right. You were kind, available, honest, vulnerable, and none of it mattered because you were trying to negotiate desire with fairness, and desire has never operated on those terms. You'll find yourself checking your phone compulsively, hoping for a reply that feels increasingly unlikely. You'll start to resent women, not because they did anything overtly cruel, but because the gap between what you were promised and what you actually experienced will feel like a betrayal. You'll start to wonder if there's something fundamentally wrong with you, some invisible flaw that everyone else can see, but you can't. And slowly, imperceptibly, you'll begin to accept a version of yourself that is less than what you were meant to be. A man who has learned that his desires are embarrassing, that his attention is unwanted unless someone else decides it has value, that the safest way to move through the world is to want nothing, expect nothing, and certainly never risk making anyone uncomfortable by expressing interest before you've received 12 clear signals that it's welcome. That is one path, and it's the path most men are on whether they realize it or not. The other path requires you to treat this moment as an initiation, to see the pattern clearly and let it reorganize how you move through the world. You stop making yourself abundant. You stop giving your attention to people who haven't demonstrated they value it. You rebuild your life around a mission that matters more than any individual woman's approval. and then something strange begins to happen. The women who would have ignored you when you were available start to notice you, not because you've become more attractive in some objective sense, but because your attention has become scarce, and scarcity generates the one feeling that abundance never can: urgency. Your life becomes quieter, simpler. You have fewer people in it, but the ones who remain chose to meet your standards, not because you lowered them to accommodate them. You stop having conversations that feel like interviews, where you're performing emotional availability, hoping she'll grant you access. You start having conversations with women who are investing in you, who are asking questions, who are making an effort because they're afraid of losing your attention. And this doesn't make you cruel or manipulative, it makes you discerning. It makes you a man who understands that his time and energy are finite, and that giving them away without reciprocation is not love. It's self-abandonment. 10 years from now, if you take this path, you will be unrecognizable to the man you are today. Not louder, not more dominant or overtly confident, but grounded in a way that doesn't require explanation. You'll be able to sit across from a beautiful woman and feel interested without need. You'll be able to walk away from dynamics that don't serve you without guilt or second-guessing. You'll have built something: a business, a body of work, a reputation, a life that gives you a baseline of self-respect that no woman can take away, because it was never dependent on her validation in the first place. And here's what will surprise you: the women in your life will respect you more. Not because you played games or withheld affection, but because you stopped betraying yourself to keep them comfortable. Because you stopped pretending that your availability was limitless and started treating your attention like the rare and valuable thing it actually is. The cold truth, the thing Schopenhauer spent his life trying to get men to see, is this: a man who makes himself abundant in a woman's life becomes the kind of man she cannot desire, not because she's shallow, not because she's broken, but because desire requires uncertainty, and uncertainty requires scarcity, and you cannot generate scarcity by making yourself endlessly available. The moment you flood her world with your presence, with your reassurances, with your willingness to drop everything to prove you care, you kill the very mechanism that creates attraction. And no amount of kindness, no amount of good intentions, no amount of being the right kind of man will override this. She does not kill your desire. She reflects your lack of boundaries. She does not destroy your mission. She reveals that you never protected it in the first place. And if that lands like an indictment, good. Because the alternative is spending the rest of your life blaming women for a dynamic you have more control over than you've ever been willing to admit. If something in this cuts close to the bone and you recognize yourself in these patterns, then do two things. First, share this with the men in your life who are living this quietly and don't yet have the language for it. And second, subscribe and keep this work alive, because the algorithms won't. This isn't content designed to go viral. It's intended to hit the men who are ready to see clearly, even when clarity is uncomfortable. Your attention is currency, and the moment you start spending it like it's limitless, you guarantee that no one will ever value it the way you hoped they would.